Origins, beginnings. Man, I think you'd want to come up with some stories, some epiphany that you had, that you saw a concert, did something, and you had to become a musician or a rock star. But to be honest with you, I was kind of born into it. I was born into being the youngest of 10 kids, and my dad played multiple instruments. My brothers and sisters played multiple instruments. So, you know, and imagine we're all 2 years apart, so imagine the decades of music, even that I would have never been exposed to at my age. Walking into one room and hearing Zeppelin, walking into another room hearing the Bee Gees, Beatles, Joe Cocker, you know, all the stuff that I probably at my age, born in '66, wouldn't have grown up on. I did. I was getting it constantly. So those were the beginnings, man. It's like you are what you eat, right? So yeah, man, I was very lucky to be, or unlucky, I don't know. Am I lucky to be here? I have no idea. I could have been like a successful attorney sitting in traffic for 8-hour days. But yeah, man, just a lot of instruments in the house, a lot of guitars, drums, everything, and I never really got lessons. I just picked them up. You just grab them, you jump on them, you play a bit of piano, you play a bit of this, bit of that, and that was the university. It was the Bettencourt household. You had no choice, man. They spoon-fed you music. But as far as being like a rocker, I think it was probably Aerosmith, especially the Get Your Wings album, that fucked my head up enough for me to go like, wow, that's cool. And that's when the kind of raunchiness of rock and roll, as opposed to, even though I love the Beatles and everything, but I think it was that album. I just got to sit down recently with, you know, as for the years that I stared at this album cover, Get Your Wings, staring at Joe Perry and staring at Tyler and the whole band and just trying to figure out what these guys are like, what they were wearing and everything. This year, actually, a few months back, I got to sit in between Perry and Tyler to tell them what I'm telling you now, that I just used to stare at that album, man, and that was the album that changed it for me, that made me want to be in rock and roll. And there I was with the two guys that I was staring at the album cover on for like hours all day, in between masturbating with a National Geographic tribal issue, of course. But you know, you gotta stay in shape. That's how people ask, why am I picking hands so fast? It had nothing to do with guitar. The first guitar, like I said, there were just guitars in the house. There were Les Pauls in the house for my brother. There was just guitars everywhere. So I was lucky enough to even just to be able to pick them up and go into them and do whatever. The first one I ever bought, actually, though, was a Kramer. It was an actual candy red Kramer, because Eddie was playing Kramers at the time. The old, yeah, like I'm talking like obviously early '80s, but yeah, that was my first guitar. I chopped the shit out of it, but chopped it up, made it stupid shape, and then it was unusable. I was playing weddings and parties and local moose lounges and clubs and shit, doing stuff like that because my brothers played. So I was already doing gigs, making money when I was like 11, 12, 13, 14, playing clubs in Boston, the Paradise and stuff with my brother's band. We had a band called Viking. They were a progressive rock band and doing complex shit, but that's where I cut my teeth, man. I was in a band called Myth when, in a garage, and I think we played the same two songs for 1 year. You know, originals, because we thought, man, creating an original is like, how do you do that? You know, because I was always playing covers. And then I was playing some clubs, got in this band called Sinful, like a rock metal band, like in like '83, and we were doing all the clubs in Boston. And then I ran into Gary Sharon, at a video shoot for his band's video shoot, a song called Mother. They were a video that they entered for the MTV Basement tapes. I met Gary out in the field. This girl introduced me, and he came out. He said, "Man, I heard you can play, whatever." Talked, were great. 2 years later, we were in a club by ourselves with a club owner named Jim Blute. He was doing a Halloween party, and the club was closed. And I ran into Gary again, and he said, "Hey, man, you guys, we're getting people from different bands. You want to do one of your favorite bands, but you can't be in the same band. Like, you can't be from the same band." So we said, "Shit, man, let's do Aerosmith." And there's photos of us doing Aerosmith, you know, this is before we were even in a band together. And that was pretty cool. Sign of things to come. Once again, Aerosmith was a big connection between us, both of us. And but that night he was in a band, I was in a different band. We were just finishing an album to get a deal. You know, LA was exploding, Sunset Strip was exploding. His band was taking off, and we said one word that changed our relationship: Queen. he asked me about Queen, and I went, that's my favorite band. He said, no, it can't be your favorite band. That's my favorite band. I'm like, no, man, it's my fucking favorite band. He's like, yeah, and we kind of quizzing each other, what's your favorite album? And I said Queen 2, which nobody listens to. He's like, that's my fucking favorite band. Did we just become best friends? Could we do karate, go out and do karate in the garage? Come on, man. But that was it, man. He called me days later. He called me at the old phones we had with the little curly cord and the actual, dial, and he said, you're probably gonna think I'm crazy and I'm fucking stalking you some shit, and we just met, but I want you to join my band. And I was like, that's great and all, but you never heard me play. And he goes, I know, I just know, I don't need to fucking hear you play. Just the conversation we had and the bands you like. I'm like, that's pretty fucking bold. That could be like the worst player in the world. And he's like, no. And I said, no. I said, no, man, I'm in a band. I'm in this band, Simple. We're doing an album. And then I said, by the way, at least come and see me play, even though I said, no, I can't do it. But you should check out the band. And he said, great, we're playing at a place called Celebrations, a place that was underground in Boston, across the street from the Rat, at Kenmore Square, right by Fenway Park. Kicks used to play there all the time. I saw Poison playing there. And you go down, you can't even see the band because they're at floor level. Gary came down, saw the band, brought the rest of his guys down, and they were like, fuck, man, that was great. And Gary came in and he met my band and stuff, and he said, I get it why you're staying, man. Good luck, man. I wish I never saw you play, because now it's like it even confirmed it even more, right? So he was cool. He left. 20 minutes later, man, I was fucking possessed by some rock and roll devil or some shit. All of a sudden, I'm looking at my band, in movies when shit just goes quiet and people are talking, partying in the room, and I just went completely quiet. And I grabbed my guitar and I looked up, and the words that I didn't even say came out of my mouth to my other guys. I said, guys, I quit. And they went, what? I said, sorry, man, I gotta go, I quit. We were just finishing up an album, our first album. I swear to you when I fucking tell you that up to 1 millisecond before those words came out of my mouth, I didn't even think about quitting or leaving. I don't know what the fuck happens when that shit happens, but destiny, all that fucking cliche bullshit. So big arguments break out. I'm just walking out while guys are yelling at me. I'm walking out of this club. And I told you it was underground. So this is at least 20 minutes after Gary left. I get to the bottom of the stairs, I look up, and Gary's up at the top of the stairs. It was like some bad fucking movie. It was like a bad, like, Eddie and the Cruisers film, you know what I'm saying? He's up there talking to some girl. I look up, I like, hey! He's like, yo, what's up? And I go, what time's rehearsal tomorrow? And that was it. That was it, man. He went, by the way, he had 2 guitar players in his band. Still at that time. He fired them the next day. God bless him, Peter Hunt, those guys, Hellebow, I know all of them. But whatever happened for whatever reason it happened. And that was it, man. The next day we were jamming. And the 2 songs that I wrote a year, the 2 songs that maybe he wrote a year, we were writing 2 or 3 a day. That was the end of that. I mean, after that, really, it was interesting. I'd never been in a band with 2 guitar players. And they have always been in a band with 2 guitar players. It's kind of the Aerosmith thing. But I was coming a little bit now from the Van Halen side, where it's like one dude, George Lynch, like the one guy that had all that sound and that tone. And he was like, look, are you going to come down and play with us? But we had this other friend that we grew up with, we thought both used together would be, sick, crazy. And in my head, I didn't want to be a dick. I'm like, that ain't going to happen. It's like, I just, not because of the ego, I knew that what I wanted to do, and I knew that it had to be like what Halen was doing, And we went over, and we got into the room, and I met the guy, Matt McKay, sweet guy, they grew up with him. We both went to play a song together, and he's like, hey man, you can take the solo that's coming up. You're like, oh no, you take it, man. We're like, it's like Chippendales, Yeah, you take it. No, you take it. We're being polite, so he took it. I didn't even play a guitar solo. We played the song. They stopped. We finished the song. They went in the hall without me. I'm thinking, I'm terrible. They don't want me to play. They come back in without Matt. And God bless Matt, man. I still know him to this day, lovely guy. He went out and said, it's either him or me. Because he didn't want to play with anybody else. So they told him like, well then, we're gonna grab him, and he went home. And it's no goodbye, no nothing, and Extreme was born, man. That was it. And they were X-Dream. They were a band called The Dream. That's how they became Extreme, because their manager sold a name to a TV show called Dreams on ABC. I remember Gary told me he put his fist through a fucking windshield or something when they told him. But that's how Extreme became Extreme, and here we are, man. Now I know I made it because I'm fucking hanging with Mark Weiss. What else can I tell you?